Hello everyone, Teresa here from Teresa's Crafty Cabana. Today I'm going to be showing you how I made these two cards. One of the cards is using a jelly print I recently made, and then one is without using a jelly print. So if you don't have a jelly plate, you can still follow along. So for the non-jelly plate one, I'm using these two embossing folders, but basically you want to find a smaller embossing folder, like smaller detail, and then something that has like a little bit bigger detail in it. So I'm using this little tiny bubbles instead of those flowers, and then the 3D embossing folder, it looks like almost like mermaid fins to me. That's what it looks like, but it could also look like crochet or something. Anyway, it's versatile. So what I'm going to do is just take my this is just Nina White cardstock, 110 pound, and I'm just going to run it through with the smaller embossing detail. Put a little water on it just so it wouldn't crack. Then I went ahead and just put it right into the 3D emboss folder, put a little more water on it just with my sprayer. And then because it's 3D, I can't use both of my cutting mats. I only use the one. And what that's going to do is create the smaller texture on the kind of like those white areas, and then there'll be the lines from the embossing. Now it doesn't look like much. You can't even really see those circles. So they'll really start to show once I put some ink over the top of them. So I'm using my Distress Oxide inks, and you can start to see those little bubbles are showing in the kind of opened areas. And so I'm just going to blend in a few different colors that go together and kind of mimic a little bit of the colors that I had going on in my other gel print. So then you can see here those little dots. So one thing you could do if you wanted to really have those dots show is you could emboss over the dots, or do your ink blending over the dots, and then run it through the 3D emboss folder or the larger embossing folder, and then you could probably see those spots a little bit better. But I thought that this was really cool. It was almost like magic, because as I was blending over them, I was seeing those dots appear, and you really can't see them that well when you don't have the ink blending over it. So it's a fun technique to just see that different design come out inside of those other spots. So after I'm done ink blending, and I left a little bit of white space, you can see here, I'm just showing you that you can see those dots. Now I wanted it to stand out a little bit more, and also in my jelly plate, or my jelly print, I had used the pearl powders, which are really shiny. So to kind of mimic that on this card base, I'm going to use this Lunar paste, slippery when wet. It's just a gold color. You could use any kind of medium that's kind of like a waxy rub-on type thing, and shiny is fun. They really stand out. So this picks up on a little bit of those dots and the lines, and even just all the spaces that it lands on. It really just catches the eye, and it really makes this whole background pop. I'm not going to do the gold everywhere. I'm just kind of strategically putting it where it feels like my eye needs to go, and I'm doing it a little thicker in some areas and then really light in other areas, but just trying to give the background some interest here. And the fact that it's already on a 3D embossed folder, it already kind of pops out. So adding this little bit of extra just makes it look even cooler. I love how easy it is to clean up this Lunar paste off of a craft mat. It's a glass craft mat, just using a razor blade. It just peels right up, nice and easy. Okay, so then I'm going to make my little sentiment piece. I wanted to make an Easter card. Easter's this weekend, but I didn't have any Easter stamps or any Easter supplies. No die cuts, nothing that said Easter, and nothing that, no bunnies. I don't really have anything to do with Easter, but that's not going to stop me from making an Easter card. So I have these just kind of wonky letters, and I'm going to just create the word that I want, which is Easter. You can see I didn't have enough letters to fill out the entire word because I have to use the E twice. So I'm just going to start with the first part of the word and then do the next part later. I'm just blending out those same colors that I had used on the background, and then kind of touching them into the prior letter just a little to blend them. Now, if you find with distress inks that either distress or distress oxides that they didn't stamp too great, it's handy to use a stamping platform like this because you can just go in and stamp again. So now I'm going to use that E and move it over, and also grab my R and just make sure all the letters fit on my little sheet here. And just finish out the colors with some yellow and orange. So that's nice and bright and happy colors. I like how that looks. Next, I'm going to work on my other background piece. So this is the gel print I had made earlier in my prior video. I will link that one. And then I cut it down to 4 inches by 5¼ inch. I have that leftover pieces and I might use those on something else. I have this scrapbook.com double-sided clear tape. I did have a question about adhering the vellum to a project, whether it's a mixed media project or a card. I think Sandy, maybe you were the one that asked. Because I did my jelly printing over this, you can't really see through this anymore, which is kind of nice because I don't have to worry about the tape showing through on vellum. But this double-sided tape, any kind of double-sided tape that you might have, is so strong that it really holds that vellum nicely. So I just did it around each of the edges and then a little bit in the middle. And then I'm just going to make sure I have the right side of my card. I've been known to put it on backwards, so double check now. And then I'm just going to line it up carefully into the center of my card base. So for those of you that watched the video of me making this jelly print, well, thank you for all your comments and your feedback on that. It's really one of my favorite techniques, is using the mica and pearl powders through a stencil or just on the background, because the gel plate really holds those mica powders in place. And you can see I'm working and the mica powders are not coming off. They're not coming off on my hand. They don't rub off. I don't, the only test I haven't tried, which I will, is seeing if I got water on them, if they'll come off. But I haven't found them to need to be set with anything, but then again, I am just using them in cards, and I don't know if you use it in mixed media and you're applying other things. I haven't tried that out. So if you do try that out and you find it doesn't need to be set, let me know what you find out if you're experimenting with this. So I've got both of my backgrounds down. To dress up my sentiment a little bit, I'm going to use just a kind of like a gold leaf pen, and I'm going around the edges of my letters, and then that'll just make it shine a little bit and make it have a little more interest. Then I had these extra die cut pieces on really thick cardstock. I think it's 140 pound cardstock that I cut these out on. These were left over from my artist trading cards that I had made, and I didn't use these pieces. These are die cut from, the die cuts I used are actually a glimmer foil die cut set, and it comes with all these leaves and flowers, and it does have the foiling for like the flowers and those the leaves that have 5 on them, but not for the smaller leaves. So I just decided to use my gold pen and draw in my details. And this is kind of a neat little, I guess, hack for creating what looks like a glimmer foiled plate, but then you're not using a glimmer foil. So if you don't have one of those and you have some fun die cuts, you could dress them up this way. And then I used this word, wishes. I was looking for one more word in my stash, Easter, either blessings or wishes, and I found wishes. So this little vellum piece is just left over from the Gelli print that I had cut up. So I'm going to use that on this background behind the wishes. And now I'm just going to kind of figure out how I want my composition of my flowers and leaves. Since the flower was going to be hidden, I decided to cut it so that I could fully utilize all of the flower. And then the 2 leaves. So I'm just kind of fiddling with it, figuring out where I want my items. And when I cut out this second flower, I realized I can layer the little flowers together and create a bigger looking flower. So again, just kind of playing with where I want it. Once I'm kind of getting the idea of what I like, I'm just making sure everything's going to line up nicely. I had applied wishes to the vellum just with wet glue, and now I'm just gluing all my little floral pieces together. So whenever I have a lot of little pieces like this, I start gluing the pieces I know I want to go together. So these leaves, I know I want those to go together, and I know I want it behind this flower. And so before long, all of my little tiny pieces become just 2 pieces. And that's a lot easier to manage to put together once I figure out where I want this last leaf to go. I think I like it in the middle there, so I'll glue that down. And before I glue them to the card, I'm just testing it out one more time just to make sure everything lines up and looks good. Now on this vellum piece, so one of the questions was, how do you adhere it without it showing through? I did use just that double-sided tape, clear tape behind it, and it was going to be tucked a little bit behind the Easter words, but not completely, and you can't really even see it. So I do think I didn't do it on the whole background but of the vellum piece, but it does kind of hide it. For the Easter sentiment, I'm going to pop that up with some foam tape just so it kind of sits above everything. All right, and that finishes out this card with my faux gold foiling on the flowers and the leaves, and then the gold in the background and on the words. So for the other card, I had this pre-made. I had already made this from another project, Happy Birthday, on a circle die. And then the flowers, I'm going to do the same thing, just kind of figure out what orientation I want them. I had the 2 petals over the 3, but I thought I like the 3 petals over the 2 better. So then I'm going to lay out my leaves and see how I want them on this composition. For this one, I'm going for more of a side. All the embellishments are going on the side of the circle instead of on the top like on the other card. So I use the same thing. Once I know which pieces I like to go together, I will glue those 2 pieces together and just start layering on piece by piece. Okay, so I'm happy with that, and I'll just go ahead and glue all those pieces down. You'll notice I'm not putting glue on my entire die cut. I do like to let them kind of hang loose a little bit and just put the glue on one side. They look a lot more like they're kind of hanging out versus stuck. So so this finishes out these 2 cards that I've made, and I hope this helps you see how you can use your gel plate backgrounds, the prints that you make from your gel plate, and even if you don't have a gel plate, just some inspiration that maybe look in your stash and see what you already have. If you don't have these exact items, what would you replace them with to get a similar look? Or maybe this inspires you to find something else in your stash that you maybe haven't thought about in a while. Because I know for me, using my alpha stamps, I don't use those very often, so this was a good way for me to use up my alpha stamps on a word that I didn't even have in my stash. So there you go. Hopefully you enjoyed watching this video, and thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of this journey with me, and I will see you in the next video. Let's see what that one's going to be like. I'll probably do a gel print, and thank you for your feedback, for telling me that you like to do cards. So that I love doing cards, so you'll see more of those. Until next time, happy crafting!